Hello everyone, my name is Hailey Slobodzian and this is my informative speech on the correlations between hospice care and euthanasia. At the end of my presentation, I'm hoping that my audience will be able to look at hospice care and euthanasia in a more knowledgeable manner and determine for themselves that these two terms have a direct correlation. Dying is not a new concept, but the nature of dying is new. With the advent of hospice care, we have entered a world of mercy dying. Those involved in the process have a variety of emotional, physical, spiritual, and social issues. The terminally ill and their families have had so many different needs, guidance, and sensitivity that there had to be an organization to act as a guide. The end of a person's life is painful and difficult to bear for the family left behind. Hospice and the services it provides are instrumental for a smooth journey through these emotional times. The question arises, are the correlations between hospice and euthanasia? There seems to be a similarity between the two concepts, and an analyst of both concepts drawn from the question of, is mercy and compassion for the dying a gentle term, a monstrous term, or one and the same? I have researched these two terms thoroughly on many avenues, including websites devoted to euthanasia and hospice, including sites such as doctors.org, 13s.org, WebsterDictionary.com, Journal of Empirical Theology.com, and EurekaStreet.com. In my research, I learned that the lines between hospice care and euthanasia is fine and sometimes blurred. Today, I will explain to you exactly what hospice is, exactly what euthanasia is to the layman. To do this, I'm going to define the terms and give a brief history of each term. I will also give you some sense of how pain is managed in each instance. I will begin by explaining what the differences are between hospice and euthanasia. The term hospice can be tracked back to early Western civilization. It is a place where the weary or sick traveler could find shelter or care. With the advancements of modern medicine, life was prolonged for the terminally ill, and the people and their families were robbed of the natural dying processes, thereby robbing them of the ability to have a voice in their care. According to Campbell and Cox in the September-October issue of Hastings Report, in the 1940s, British physician, Dr. Cicely Saunders and Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross explored the ways of improving the process of dying. These women concluded that dying should never be cast away with a thought to the importance of their lives. They brought awareness to the fact that the dying and individuals all deserve respect. Hospice exists to help people cope with the terminal illness, death, and the process of grieving. The nurses involved are experts on the symptoms of control and pain management. According to definition, the diverse influence of religion and worldview of the palliative care by Dr. Breckenhart, palliative care is the relieving and preventing of suffering of patients, the bias of hospice. At the point in which the life that is burden of care is overwhelmed for the family and the patient is at the precipice, the beginning of death, the final stages of hospice care comes to play. It is called hospice end-of-life care. It is at this stage that the patient is usually transferred to a hospice facility to complete their journey to death. This is the stage where the term hospice and euthanasia has a blurred line. Euthanasia directly translation comes from the Greek meaning good death. Susan Levine in the article debated whether the concept is being overused to hasten a death where there is no recovery, but possibly life with a lesser quality. Euthanasia is a way of granting mercy both by directly killing and by letting the person die. The principle of mercy may also demand letting a person die in still stronger sense. The principle asserts a duty to act to end the suffering that is already occurring. Medicine is committed to this by pain management, such as narcotics, nerve blocking, acupuncture, neurosurgery. Sometimes something in helping with mercy, the patient cannot be altered as long as there is a consciousness. Then the patient would be rendered unconscious and they would no longer have a voice in treatment, and the treatment would completely stop. As Dr. Brennan states in Oregon on the slippery slope, ending the pain through what life would be done through passive euthanasia. This is withholding or withdrawing treatment that can prolong life. In most cases, the patient is simply not given treatment that may extend the life. For example, radiation, blood pressure medicine, blood thinners. As Campbell and Cox stated, sometimes antibiotics are withheld from the patient with cancer. Then the infection will kill the patient sooner and in a much gentler way. In all the passive euthanasia cases, the patient's life is extended is the mercy that demands that they will be allowed to die. There is the next stage of mercy that demands the easing of pain by means of more direct acts than merely letting the person just die. This is the act of knowing the act of killing the patient or helping the patient to kill themselves, as Dr. Kevorkian's suicidal killing machine. Although in many possibilities to draw a correlation between passive and active euthanasia, it does not address the view that killing is morally worse than letting someone die, nor does it support the view that withdrawing treatment is worse than withholding it. Once again, Campbell and Cox put this in a way. If the patient condition is so tragic that continuing life brings only pain, and there is no way to relieve then pain by death, the more merciful act is one that mercy removes support for bodily processes and waits for eventual death. Rather is one that brings the pain in the patient's life to an end. Brennan says, if the grounds on which is more merciful not to prolong the life, hospice, therefore, are grounds on which it is merciful to terminate it all at once. The easy overdose, the lethal injections are what mercy demands when no other means will bring relief. Patients die in the care of hospice an agonizing death, gasping for each last breath. Today I've tried to give you a more clear definition of two protocols of the terminally ill. When viewing all these elements together, I see the direct distinction between active and passive euthanasia, but it leads me to derive further into the correlation between passive euthanasia and hospice care. I feel that what has been done, whether legally or morally, is to be taking a term horrible to the population and renamed it something palatable to the world. The term passive euthanasia has been renamed hospice care, and how people can feel better about placing their loved ones in a beautiful, serene place to gasp for their last breath.